Hello and welcome to the Minimal Sizzle channel. Being human isn't easy. Unlike animals, we're born without an instruction manual. No one hands us a map saying, here's your purpose, here's the direction your life should take. Sure, our parents, teachers or mentors might nudge us a bit, but ultimately we're left to figure it all out on our own. And that's a tough journey. You wake up some mornings and the world feels wide open, but also completely overwhelming. 12 possible paths stretch out in front of you, and you don't know which one to take. It's confusing, it's stressful, and it can make you feel lost. But something changes the moment you find your sense of purpose, what I like to call your life's task. Suddenly, life begins to line up. Your energy finds direction. You stop scattering it across a dozen meaningless pursuits. It's not that life becomes narrower, it actually becomes richer, more vibrant, and more exciting. You wake up each morning with clarity. This is what I'm here to do. And when people throw distractions your way, when the world tries to pull you off course with noise, drama, and pointless obligations, you just smile. You have a kind of internal radar that tells you exactly what matters and what doesn't. That inner compass is the greatest gift a person can ever find. And I genuinely wish everyone could discover it for themselves. But let's be honest, it's not easy. There's no shortcut, no instant formula. Finding your purpose isn't something anyone else can hand you. It's something you have the power to uncover layer by layer. Here's the truth. When you were born, you were a phenomenon. You were one of one. Your DNA has never existed before and will never exist again in the history of the universe. Everything that shaped you, your childhood, your family, your environment, all of it combined to form something utterly unique. That uniqueness is your power. To waste it is to waste your life. Your purpose lies in that uniqueness, understanding what makes you, you, and learning how to use it to create something meaningful. When you were 4 or 5 years old, you already had hints of it. Psychologist Abraham Maslow called them impulse voices. These are those natural, instinctive leanings you had as a child, the things you loved and hated, the things that lit you up or drove you crazy. At that age, you were pure instinct. You knew what you liked, what you didn't, what fascinated you, and what bored you. And those little impulses weren't random, they were clues, early signposts pointing toward your natural inclinations. Harvard psychologist Howard Gardner talks about this beautifully in his book, Frames of Mind. He identified multiple forms of intelligence: linguistic, logical, kinesthetic, social, creative, spatial, the list goes on. The problem is, society tends to only value one or two of them. If you're not an academic or mathematically gifted, you're made to feel like you're not intelligent, but your brain, your wiring, might just run in a completely different direction. Maybe your genius lies in movement, or empathy, or design. Maybe your brilliance isn't solving equations, but in reading people, leading teams, or creating beauty from chaos. When you were young, that inner voice knew, but then the noise of the world started creeping in. Teachers told you what you were good or bad at. Parents, although well-intentioned, pushed you toward what they thought was safe. Your peers told you what was cool and what wasn't. And somewhere along the line, that small voice inside you, the one that once whispered your truth, got drowned out. You entered adulthood without that inner radar. You chased money. You chased status. You chased approval. But you lost connection to the one thing that made you feel alive. And that's why so many people wake up one day, successful on paper, but empty inside. I know because I've been there. Years ago, I was a hard-working chef. Long hours, low pay, constant pressure. I loved the creativity, but I was exhausted. I was living hand to mouth, grinding day and night in hot kitchens for people who barely noticed the effort. And somewhere between the late night shifts and the endless cycle of fatigue, I realized something. If I didn't change direction, I was going to burn out completely. So I did something crazy for a guy in his mid-20s with no savings and very little time. I went back to school at night. I studied finance, not because I was naturally good at numbers, but because I saw it as a bridge, a way to create new options for myself. I saw people working as market traders, stock market traders, coming into the hotel and spending more money in one evening than I earned in a month. And it gave me a clue. There's money in the stock market. Let's study that. There's a very famous saying, success leaves clues, and it's very true. And believe me, it wasn't glamorous. There were nights I came home from the restaurant after a 12-hour shift, covered in grease, exhausted, and still sat down to study. I was fueled by something deeper than motivation. It was desperation mixed with faith. It took years. I made mistakes. I worked for a few awful companies, but I kept moving, kept refining, kept listening to that inner radar. And eventually things clicked. I landed on my feet in the financial world. The long hours, the discipline, the work ethic I learned in the kitchen, they became my superpowers. I found success, real success. But something unexpected happened. Once I achieved it, once I had the house, the fancy car, and the nice lifestyle, I realized it wasn't what I really wanted. The corporate world was just another kind of kitchen, hot, stressful, competitive, and full of egos. The money was great, but the peace was missing. So I made another decision. I stepped away. I retired early, sold up, and moved to Asia, trading materialism for meaning, noise for nature, and stress for simplicity. And in doing so, I found something priceless: balance, peace, perspective, and most importantly, a return to that same internal voice I'd lost so long ago. Now my days are simple, grounded, and real. And I can tell you from experience, there's no comparison between chasing things that impress others and living a life that feels authentic to your soul. That's what finding your life's task does. It aligns your energy, your passion, and your peace. When you discover what truly matters, discipline stops feeling like a chore. You're not forcing yourself to learn, you want to learn. You grow faster because your heart is in it. You don't just survive the hard days, you thrive through them because every challenge connects to something meaningful inside you. The key is emotional engagement. The moment your emotions align with your purpose, your brain switches gears. You learn faster, you adapt better, you see possibilities that others don't. That's why people who love what they do seem unstoppable. They're fueled from the inside. But if you've lost touch with that, don't panic. It's never too late. For some people, clarity comes early. For others, like me, it takes years, sometimes decades. You might not find your exact path at 20 or 30. I didn't find mine really until later in life, but the search itself is part of the journey. And if you're older and still figuring it out, that's okay. It's like archaeology. You just have to dig. Dig through your past, your memories, your curiosities. The clues are there. Ask yourself, what fascinated me as a child? What activities made me lose track of time? What did I do simply for the joy of doing it? And don't be afraid to follow those breadcrumbs. Because when you reconnect with that inner compass, life stops feeling like chaos. You stop chasing other people's definitions of success. You start to build your own. And that's when the magic happens. Look at people like Elon Musk, Serena Williams, or great creators like Mr. Beast or Casey Neistat. Every one of them found something that connected deeply to who they were. They followed that grain in their brain, that emotional current. And once they did, everything aligned. It's not about luck. It's about alignment. You don't need to have it all figured out today. You just need to start listening again to that quiet, honest voice inside you that's been there all along. It's been whispering the same message since you were a child. This is who you are. And when you finally tune in, the noise of the world starts to fade away. Purpose isn't about being busy. It's about being alive. So if you take anything from this talk, let it be this. You already have everything you need to create a meaningful, fulfilling life. The blueprint is within you. You just have to listen, trust, and take that first brave step towards becoming who you were always meant to be. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe and tell other people that may well be of interest in self-improvement and personal development. Enjoy.